Alara Vance stifled a yawn as she cataloged yet another box of donated textiles. The basement storage room of Westfield University's Museum of Cultural History was dimly lit and perpetually dusty, much like her career prospects. 6 years of specialized education in historical textile preservation. And here she was, labeling moth-eaten scarves from anonymous donors who believed their grandmother's vacation souvenirs were museum-worthy. Item 2347B, she muttered into her recorder. Appears to be mid-20th century machine-embroidered table runner. Geometric motif consistent with mass-produced Mexican tourist items. She placed a small tag on it and moved to the next item with mechanical efficiency. Her desk was cluttered with the organized chaos particular to archivists. Acid-free tissue paper, cotton gloves, specialized tools, and stacks of forms. Among this professional detritus sat an unusual object, a metallic sphere about the size of grapefruit, covered in intricate geometric patterns that didn't quite match any known Earth culture. It was surprisingly heavy, always cool to the touch, and currently serving as a rather elegant paperweight. Alara's phone buzzed with a message from Mira, her only work friend and fellow underpaid academic. Asterisk budget meeting ended. Bad news. Ramirez talking about streamlining special collections staff. Translation, one of us is getting cut. Betting it's me since I'm newest. Drinks later to commiserate. Asterisk. Alara sighed and rubbed her temples. She glanced at the sphere, absently running her fingers over its strange etchings. For a fleeting second, she thought the patterns shifted slightly beneath her touch, but she dismissed it as I strained from squinting at faded embroidery all morning. Great, she texted back. Just what we need. Another round of cuts while the football program gets a new holographic training facility. Yes to drinks. I'll need several. The sphere had come to her 3 months ago, part of a box of odds and ends she'd inherited from a great aunt she barely remembered meeting. Most of the items were worthless trinkets, costume jewelry, kitschy souvenirs, and this curious object that had been lazily labeled Central American Ritual Object in her gray aunt's shaky handwriting. The note claimed it had been acquired during travels, which could mean anything from legitimate purchase to outright theft, given the era's casual approach to cultural artifacts. Alara had meant to properly catalog it for her personal collection, but had been too swamped with work. She'd brought it to the museum to use some of the specialized equipment, but every attempt to identify its composition or origin had been inconclusive. The metal didn't match known alloys, and the geometric patterns defied categorization in any Earth culture database. You're a mystery, aren't you? She murmured to the sphere, setting down her recorder. Though I'm guessing high-end reproduction. Someone with excellent craftsmanship, having a bit of fun, creating a mysterious artifact. Just then, her computer pinged with an email notification. Another passive-aggressive message from Dr. Harrison, the museum director, about the backlog of uncatalogued donations. As if she wasn't already working through lunch every day to keep up. I need more coffee for this, she muttered, standing up too quickly. Her elbow knocked over her mug, sending cold coffee cascading across her desk and directly toward her laptop. No. Alara lunged forward, slamming her palm down beside the sphere in frustration as she grabbed for napkins with her other hand. A low, resonant hum filled the room. Alara froze, napkins clutched in her hand, as the sphere beneath her palm began to vibrate. The geometric patterns, which had always appeared to be etched into the metal, now glowed with a soft blue-green light that pulsed in rhythm with the humming. What the? The light intensified, and suddenly the sphere projected what looked like a three-dimensional star map into the air above her desk. Constellations and celestial bodies she didn't recognize rotated slowly in the projection, with certain points pulsing brighter than others. For 5 seconds, Alara stood transfixed by the beautiful display. Then, piercing alarms shattered the moment, blaring from sensors she hadn't even known existed in the ceiling of her workspace. Red lights began flashing, and an automated voice announced, "Alert! Biologic-linguistic anomaly level 7 detected. Containment protocols initiating. Please remain in your current location." Containment protocols? Was this a sci-fi movie? Alara backed away from her desk, heart pounding. The museum had standard security systems, but nothing like this. The sphere continued projecting its star map, oblivious to the chaos it had created. Before she could reach the door, it burst open. Two figures entered with military precision, definitely not campus security or even local police. The first was human, at least a tall, broad-shouldered man with close-cropped hair and calculating eyes. He wore unmarked tactical gear that screamed government agent and carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd seen combat. The second figure wasn't human at all. Alara's brain struggled to process what she was seeing. The creature was roughly humanoid, but with an exoskeleton that resembled both insect and reptile. Its head sported multiple eyes that independently swiveled to scan the room, and its limbs moved with an unsettling fluidity. It wore what appeared to be a specialized suit adapted for its unusual physiology. The human reached up and touched something near his ear. Immediately, the alarm silenced. "MS. Vance," he said, not a question, but a confirmation. "I'm Agent Thorne. This is Agent Zyler. You've activated something you shouldn't have." The non-human, Zyler, moved toward her desk with surprising grace, examining the sphere and its projection without touching either. Its multiple eyes seemed to capture and analyze every detail simultaneously. "The object is exhibiting class 4 resonance patterns," Zyler said in a voice that sounded artificially produced, with precise diction and unusual cadence. "Activation appears partial but stable. Containment is recommended." "Wait, who are you people? What's going on?" Alara found her voice, anger temporarily overriding fear. "You can't just barge in here." "Actually, we can," Thorne interrupted, showing her a badge that briefly displayed a holographic emblem she didn't recognize. "Bureau of Extrahistorical Artifact Verification and Interstellar Neutrality. That object you've been using as a paperweight is precursor technology, extremely dangerous and extremely valuable." "Precursor?" Alara repeated blankly. "Ancient alien civilization. Disappeared millions of years ago. Left technology scattered throughout the galaxy," Thorne explained brusquely. "Most of it dormant or degraded. Until now, apparently." "This can't be happening," Alara muttered, looking between the agents and the glowing sphere. "We know about aliens, sure, but they're just trade agreements and diplomatic meetings on the news. Not this. Most humans know what they're permitted to know," Zyler stated matter-of-factly. "The precursor relic appears to have imprinted on your biometric signature during activation. Curious. Highly improbable. It should not have recognized terrestrial DNA as an authorized user." The creature moved closer to Alara, those multiple eyes studying her with scientific detachment. "You are now part of an active extraterrestrial technology event. You will need to come with us for debriefing and containment." "Containment? I'm not going anywhere. I have deadlines cataloging to finish." Alara backed away. "This is crazy. That thing is just some weird artifact my great-aunt left me. It's probably just malfunctioning electronics inside an art piece." Thorne's expression showed thinly veiled impatience. "MS. Vance, that weird artifact just sent a signal that activated dormant security protocols installed in this building decades ago. Protocols specifically designed to detect precursor technology. If we don't contain this situation immediately, more alarms will trigger at higher levels of security." "I don't. Your role in the museum's cataloging system is now irrelevant," Zyler interrupted. "The relic has chosen you as its interface. This is statistically significant." Thorne added with grim finality, "What my partner is trying to say is that you're coming with us, and so is that sphere. This isn't optional. Planetary security protocols override your employment obligations." As if to emphasize his point, the sphere's projection suddenly expanded, filling more of the room with its alien star map, one particular point now pulsating with increasing brightness. "It's establishing coordinates," Zyler observed with what might have been excitement, if its synthetic voice could express such an emotion. "The relic is actively processing stellar data. This is unprecedented." Fine, Ilera said, surprised by her own calm as the reality of the situation finally sank in. But I'm bringing my cataloging kit. If I'm going to be abducted by government agents over an alien paperweight, I'm at least going to properly document the experience. Thorn looked like he wanted to object, but Xyler made an odd clicking sound that might have been its version of laughter. The human displays practical adaptive thinking, Xyler noted. Her pattern recognition skills may prove useful. The BAVN protocols allow for civilian specialist conscription in Class 4 events. BAVN, Ilera repeated, raising an eyebrow as she gathered her essential tools. Seriously? Government acronyms are the true universal constant, Thorn muttered, the first hint of humanity breaking through his professional facade. Let's move. We've got 13 minutes before the university's regular security does their patrol. As Ilera carefully placed the still-humming sphere into her padded archival case, she cast one last glance at her mundane workspace. The coffee still puddled on her desk, her half-finished forms waiting for classifications that suddenly seemed absurdly trivial. I was just complaining about wanting field work, she whispered to herself with bitter irony. Be careful what you wish for. The BAVN regional headquarters was nothing like Ilera had imagined a secret alien monitoring facility would be. Located beneath what appeared to be an unremarkable government records building downtown, it was clinically sterile, blindingly white, and hummed with technology she couldn't begin to identify. Most unsettling was the staff, a mix of humans and at least 3 distinct non-human species, all moving with purposeful efficiency through the complex. This way, Thorn directed, leading her to a laboratory area where several technicians waited. Analysis first, then briefing. Analysis of what? Me or the sphere? Ilera asked, clutching her archive case protectively. Both, Xyler answered, multiple eyes blinking in sequence. The relic has established a connection to you that our preliminary scans cannot explain. This is outside standard protocols. The lab resembled a medical facility crossed with an engineering workshop. Screens displayed data in writing systems Ilera didn't recognize, and equipment hummed with purposes she couldn't guess. A team of technicians, 2 human, 1 distinctly not, waited with the focused anticipation of scientists presented with a new puzzle. Place the relic on the central platform, instructed the non-human technician, whose body appeared to be primarily composed of translucent tissues through which Ilera could see pulsing organs. She tried not to stare. Carefully, Ilera removed the sphere from her case and placed it on the indicated platform. It had stopped projecting the star map during transit, but still hummed faintly, its patterns glowing dimly. Now, please step onto the adjacent platform, the technician continued. The scan is non-invasive. Ilera hesitantly complied, standing on a circular platform that immediately illuminated beneath her feet. A gentle, tingling sensation washed over her skin as invisible energies assessed her. Unusual, muttered one of the human technicians, studying readings on a floating display. The artifact isn't just synchronized to her. It's actively maintaining the connection even when physically separated. Try to activate it, Thorn instructed the alien technician. See if it responds to anyone else. For the next 20 minutes, Ilera watched as various technicians attempted to elicit a response from the sphere using increasingly sophisticated methods. The sphere remained stubbornly inert, its lights dimmed to a faint glow. MS. Vance, please approach the relic again, requested the lead technician finally. When Ilera stepped near, the sphere immediately brightened, its hum intensifying. When she touched it, the star map projection returned, more detailed than before. Fascinating, Xyler observed. The precursor device recognizes you specifically. This is unprecedented in documented cases of recovered technology. What exactly are precursors? Ilera asked, studying the projection. As an archivist, she couldn't help but notice patterns in the star configurations. They seemed to be organized in ways that suggested intentional groupings rather than random stellar distributions. A new figure entered the laboratory, a tall, elegant humanoid with silvery skin and eyes that appear to have no pupils or irises, just swirling mists of blue. When they spoke, their voice resonated with harmonic undertones. The precursors were the first, they said simply. At least, the first we know of. A civilization that achieved interstellar travel, manipulation of matter and energy, and possibly transcendence itself, millions of years before any current species evolved intelligence. The newcomer nodded respectfully to Thorn and Xyler before addressing Ilera directly. I'm Director Lyran. I oversee precursor research for this sector. What you have activated is potentially the most significant find in centuries. Ilera looked back at the sphere, trying to process that this object she'd been using to hold down catalog sheets was actually millions of years old and created by an ancient alien civilization. It can't be that significant, she countered. My great-aunt had it sitting on a shelf collecting dust for decades before she died. Wouldn't someone have noticed if it was alien? Most precursor artifacts are remarkably inert until specifically triggered, Director Lyran explained. They designed their technology to be virtually indestructible, but to reveal its functions only under precise circumstances. It's why so many pieces have survived scattered across thousands of worlds. Yet so few have ever been successfully activated. The director gestured to the star map still floating above the sphere. This appears to be a locator of some kind, possibly part of a network. The pulsing point likely indicates the location of another precursor site or artifact. Which is where, exactly? Thorn asked, studying the unfamiliar constellations. One of the technicians manipulated controls, overlaying the projection with recognizable star charts. After a moment, coordinates appeared. It's pointing to the abandoned Nexus station in the border zone, the technician announced with evident surprise. Ilera noticed Thorn and Xyler exchange meaningful glances. The border zone? She asked. Contested space near Earth's solar system, Thorn explained tersely. The station was built as a joint research facility by 3 species, then abandoned during diplomatic tensions 50 years ago. It's been considered too politically sensitive to reclaim or destroy. Perfect hiding place for something you don't want found, Director Lyra mused. Or perhaps it was there long before the station was built. Xyler's multiple eyes focused on the projected coordinates. The probability of coincidence is negligible. The station may have been built at that specific location precisely because of precursor influence or technology. Director Lyran turned to Ilera. We need to investigate this immediately, and it appears we need you to do it. Me? Ilera laughed nervously. I'm an archivist specializing in historical textiles. I don't do space adventures. Your expertise in pattern recognition and symbology may prove unexpectedly relevant, Xyler noted. Additionally, the relic responds only to you. Logic dictates your presence is essential. I haven't even had proper training for field research on Earth, let alone space stations. Ilera protested. I need protocols, procedures, proper documentation methods. We'll provide expedited training, Director Lyran assured her with that same otherworldly calm. Agent Thorn and Agent Xyler will accompany you. The mission is reconnaissance only. Locate what the artifact is pointing to and secure it if possible. Ilera looked at the sphere, then at the determined faces around her. She thought about her tiny apartment, her dead-end job cataloging donations no one cared about, and the budget cuts looming over the museum. I have conditions, she said finally, surprising herself with her boldness. My friend Mira at the museum, make sure she doesn't get laid off while I'm gone. And I want proper equipment. If I'm going to document alien artifacts, I need the right tools. Thorn looked annoyed, but Director Lyran made a sound like chiming bells, apparently laughter. Reasonable requests, they agreed. Now, let's begin your crash course in interstellar field protocols. You leave in 6 hours. Try not to touch anything, breathe on anything, or look at anything too intensely, Thorn instructed as they prepared to board the BAVIN transport vessel. Some precursor tech is reactive to biological markers, electrical impulses, or even conscious observation. That's not helpful advice, Alara replied, adjusting the specialized field kit they provided her. It contained familiar archival tools alongside devices she'd spent the last 5 hours learning to operate. How am I supposed to examine anything without looking at it? Agent Thorne employs hyperbole as a teaching mechanism, Xyler observed, checking a series of instruments on its exoskeletal suit. However, his caution is warranted. The protocols I have shared with you should minimize risk while allowing necessary interaction. The transport vessel looked nothing like the sleek spaceships of popular media. It was bulky, asymmetrical, and seemed cobbled together from disparate technologies, which Alara later learned it literally was incorporating compatible elements from various species' engineering traditions. Inside, however, it was surprisingly comfortable, with acceleration couches that adjusted to each occupant's physiology. Alara secured the sphere in a specially designed containment unit that would allow it to be accessed but prevented unexpected activations. Transit time to Nexus Station, approximately 47 minutes, announced the pilot, another non-human whose species Alara couldn't identify. Stealth systems engaged. We are cleared for departure. The sensation of liftoff was surprisingly gentle, a slight pressure followed by a momentary weightlessness that settled into what felt like normal gravity. Screens inside the vessel showed their rapid ascent through Earth's atmosphere, clouds giving way to the star-filled blackness of space. First time off planet? Thorne asked, noticing Alara's wide-eyed expression. Is it that obvious? She couldn't tear her gaze from the viewport, showing Earth receding behind them, a blue-white sphere that suddenly seemed both precious and small. Everyone remembers their first time, he said, his usual gruffness softening slightly. It changes your perspective permanently. The human concept of awe is neurologically similar across species with visual cortices, Xyler added, in what Alara was beginning to recognize as its version of conversational contribution. The sensory impact of witnessing one's homeworld from space produces measurable changes in cognitive patterns. He means it's normal to be blown away by the view, Thorne translated. I understood, Alara assured them, finally turning away from the viewport. So, what exactly are we expecting to find on this abandoned station? Unknown, Xyler stated. Precursor technology has been documented in forms ranging from information repositories to weapon systems to devices that alter fundamental physical properties. The artifact's designation as a locator suggests it may lead to a larger installation or network node. In other words, we don't know, Thorne simplified. Could be data, could be a doomsday device. That's why we're bringing you in your museum cataloging obsession. Maybe you'll spot something our military and scientific perspectives miss. I'm not obsessive. I'm thorough, Alara corrected, opening her tablet to review the information they provided about Nexus Station. And pattern recognition isn't just about spotting differences. It's about understanding the underlying organizational principles. As she studied the station's schematics, Alara found herself applying the same analytical approach she used with textile patterns. The station's layout revealed cultural influences from the three species that had built it: concentric circular patterns favored by one species, linear grid-like sections from another, and organic asymmetrical areas from the third. Understanding these design philosophies might help navigate the abandoned structure. We're approaching the border zone, the pilot announced. Entering communications blackout. The vessel's lights dimmed slightly as it engaged additional stealth measures. Outside, distant points of light became visible. Other ships or stations marking the boundary between Earth-controlled space and territories claimed by various other species. Nexus Station on visual, the pilot reported. On the main screen, a structure appeared against the backdrop of stars. A sprawling installation that resembled a metallic snowflake, with 6 main arms extending from a central hub. Parts of it were dark, while others glowed with minimal emergency lighting. It rotated slowly, creating an eerie, almost hypnotic effect. Life support is minimal but present in the central sections, Thorne noted, checking his equipment. Atmosphere should be breathable, but we'll wear emergency respiratory units just in case. Temperature will be cold, Station's been running on automatic maintenance protocols for decades. The artifact should be activated prior to docking, Xyler suggested. It may provide more specific location parameters within the station. Alara retrieved the sphere from its containment unit and held it in her gloved hands. Immediately, it began to hum and glow, projecting once again the star map, but now with additional details. A specific section of the station was highlighted in the projection, with pulsing pathways indicating a route. Central Hub, Research Level 3, Thorne observed. That was primarily Earth Alliance territory during the station's operation. Makes our access easier, at least. The pattern of illumination suggests directional guidance rather than simple location marking, Xyler noted. The artifact appears to be designed for navigation purposes. Like a map and key combined, Alara murmured, studying how the projected pathways corresponded to the station schematics. It's not just showing us where to go, it's showing us how to get there safely. The docking process was tense but uneventful. The station's automated systems recognized their approach and granted access to a maintenance bay. As the airlock cycled, Alara felt her heart racing. This was so far beyond her experience that it barely seemed real, like she'd fallen asleep cataloging textiles and was having an elaborate dream. Stay between us, Thorne instructed as they prepared to enter the station. Keep the artifact accessible but secured. And remember the emergency protocols. Alara nodded, double-checking the special harness they provided that allowed her to carry the sphere securely while keeping her hands free. She'd also been given a standard-issue BAVN field suit that provided basic protection and communication capabilities. The airlock hissed open, revealing a dimly lit corridor. The air that rushed in was stale and cold, carrying a metallic tang. Their helmet lights illuminated dust particles floating in the low gravity, creating eerie, shifting patterns in the darkness. Minimal life support functioning. Xyler confirmed after consulting a device on its suit. Atmosphere composition within acceptable parameters for human respiration, though oxygen levels are lower than optimal. They proceeded cautiously through the deserted corridors, following the route indicated by the sphere's projection. The station was eerily quiet, with only the occasional mechanical hum or distant ping breaking the silence. Signs of hasty abandonment were everywhere. Personal items left behind, research materials still displayed on now powerless screens, coffee cups long dried up on workstations. What happened here? Alara whispered, examining a laboratory where equipment had been partially disassembled. Political crisis, Thorne replied tersely. 3 species trying to share research and resources, all with their own agendas. Something valuable was discovered, accusations of theft followed, then threats of military action. Everyone evacuated before things escalated further. The diplomatic resolution required complete abandonment as a neutral compromise, Xyler added. No species could claim exclusive rights to the research or technology developed here. As they moved deeper into the station, following the sphere's guidance, Alara noticed something odd. The dust patterns on the floor showed signs of recent disturbance. Not from human or known alien footprints, but strange, geometric patterns as if something had swept through the corridors. We may not be alone, she whispered, pointing to the patterns. Thorne immediately raised his weapon, while Xyler's multiple eyes swiveled in different directions, scanning for threats. Automated systems? Thorne suggested. Improbable, Xyler responded. Station maintenance droids follow standardized movement patterns. These disturbances are irregular and appear recent. Just then, the sphere's humming intensified, and the patterns on its surface began spinning rapidly. Ahead, a sealed door that had appeared inactive suddenly illuminated with similar geometric patterns. It's responding to the door, Alara realized. Or the door is responding to it. Thorne looked suspicious. This wasn't on the schematics. That should be a standard laboratory entrance. Precursor technology frequently incorporates concealment mechanisms, Xyler noted. The artifact appears to be activating a hidden system. Alara approached the door cautiously, holding the sphere toward it. The humming reached a crescendo, and suddenly both the sphere and the door flashed with synchronized light patterns. The door slid open silently, revealing a chamber beyond that was unlike anything else they'd seen on the station. The room was perfectly circular, with walls covered in the same geometric patterns as the sphere. At its center stood a massive device, a column that reached from floor to ceiling, surrounded by what appeared to be control interfaces unlike any human or known alien design. The entire chamber hummed with energy, clearly powered independently from the rest of the station. "This is precursor construction," Zyler stated with what might have been awe in its synthetic voice. "A fully preserved installation, hidden within the station." "But why here?" Thorn wondered, scanning the room warily. Why hide it in an already hidden space station? "Maybe it was here first," Elara suggested, studying the patterns on the walls. "Maybe the station was built around it, either intentionally or unknowingly." As they cautiously entered the chamber, the sphere's projection changed, now displaying symbols that corresponded to markings on the central column. Elara approached it slowly, comparing the patterns. "It's some kind of interface instruction," she said, her archivist training kicking in as she analyzed the symbols. "The sphere is showing how to activate or access the main device." Before she could explain further, a new sound caught their attention. Footsteps and voices approaching from a corridor they hadn't explored. "We have company," Thorn hissed, positioning himself between Elara and the unexplored entrance. "Get behind cover." They barely had time to conceal themselves before another group entered the chamber. 4 figures in unmarked environmental suits. Their leader, a tall humanoid with distinctive cranial ridges visible through his helmet visor, immediately approached the central column with confident familiarity. "Scavengers," Zyler whispered. "Crack's mercenaries. They specialize in acquiring and selling prohibited technology." "How do they find this place?" Thorn muttered. "They may have tracked our approach," Zyler suggested. "Or they could have independent intelligence about the precursor installation." The Crack's leader barked orders to his team in a guttural language, and they began setting up equipment around the central column. Their movements were practiced, suggesting this wasn't their first visit. "They're trying to extract it," Thorn realized. "They're planning to steal the entire central device." "That would be catastrophic," Zyler warned. "Precursor technology of this scale is likely integrated with the station at fundamental levels. Forcible removal could trigger defensive measures or structural collapse." Elara clutched the sphere, which had begun pulsing more rapidly, its hum rising in pitch. The Crack's team suddenly froze, turning toward their hiding place. "They've detected us," Thorn said grimly, readying his weapon. "So much for stealth." The next moments erupted in chaos. The Crack's leader shouted commands, and his team drew weapons. Thorn pushed Elara further behind cover while returning fire, and Zyler activated devices on its exoskeletal suit that created disorienting energy fields. "Get to the column," Thorn ordered Elara during a break in the firefight. "The sphere seems to be the key to whatever this place is. If you can activate it properly, maybe it has defenses we can use." Ducking low, Elara made her way toward the central column, the sphere clutched against her chest. As she approached, the patterns on both the column and the sphere synchronized, pulsing with increasing brightness. The Crack's leader noticed her movement and shouted something to his team. 2 of them immediately changed their focus, aiming for Elara. Thorn intercepted one with precisely aimed fire, while Zyler somehow bent light around itself to appear in multiple locations, confusing the other attacker. Reaching the column, Elara frantically studied the interface patterns. Drawing on her training in symbol analysis and the crash course in precursor technology, she began matching the sphere's projections to the column's receptors. "I think I need to place the sphere here," she called out, identifying a recessed area that matched the sphere's dimensions perfectly. "Do it," Thorn shouted back, locked in close combat with one of the Crack's mercenaries. With trembling hands, Elara positioned the sphere in the receptor. It fit perfectly, clicking into place as if returning home after a long absence. Immediately, the entire chamber thrummed with power. The column illuminated from within, patterns racing along its surface with increasing speed. The Crack's leader saw what was happening and lunged toward her with desperate fury. Xyler intercepted him, its multiple limbs moving with preternatural speed to restrain the larger being. Step back from the column. Xyler warned Alara. Energy signatures are spiking beyond predicted parameters. But Alara couldn't move, because the moment the sphere had connected with the column, a beam of light had engulfed her, holding her immobile. Information flooded her consciousness, star maps, mathematical equations, engineering principles beyond human understanding, and something else. Something like a message or a warning, but in concepts rather than words. Simultaneously, a massive energy pulse erupted from the column, expanding outward in a concentric wave. It passed through organic beings harmlessly, but shorted out all weapons and technology it touched. The Crack's mercenaries' equipment failed instantly, as did some of Thorn and Xyler's devices. More significantly, a second energy signature fired upward through the station and out into space. A focused beam of such power that it momentarily outshone nearby stars. A beacon, broadcasting to the depths of space. As suddenly as it had begun, the energy transfer ended. The sphere ejected itself from the column, now inert and dull, its patterns no longer glowing. Alara collapsed to the floor, overwhelmed by the vast download of information that had been forced into her mind. The last thing she heard before losing consciousness was Thorn's voice, surprisingly gentle. "We've got you, Alara. We've got you." Awareness returned in fragments. Beeping medical equipment. Hushed voices. The antiseptic smell of a medical facility. Alara opened her eyes to find herself in a recovery room at BEVIN headquarters, with monitoring devices attached to her temples and wrists. "The patient is conscious," announced a medical technician whose features kept shifting subtly, as if Alara's perception couldn't quite pin them down. Director Lyron appeared at her bedside, those misty blue eyes studying her with scientific curiosity and something like concern. "Welcome back, MS. Vance," they said. "You've been unconscious for 26 hours. How do you feel?" Alara tried to form words, but her thoughts were chaotic, crowded with information and images that weren't her own. Star configurations, mathematical formulas, engineering concepts, and beneath it all, a persistent sense of urgency, of warning. "Too much," she managed to whisper. "In my head. Too much." Director Lyra nodded, as if this confirmed their suspicions. "The precursor device appears to have used you as a download vessel. Your brain scans show unprecedented activity in regions associated with spatial reasoning and pattern recognition." Alara closed her eyes, trying to organize the chaos in her mind. The information was there, but fragmented, like a massive puzzle dumped onto the floor of her consciousness. "The sphere?" she asked, opening her eyes again. "Where is it?" "Contained and inactive," Director Lyron replied. "It appears to have completed its primary function and entered a dormant state. Our attempts to reactivate it have been unsuccessful." Gradually, Alara's surroundings came into clearer focus. She was in a private medical suite with security protocols visible on the door. Through a window, she could see agents and technicians hurrying past, an atmosphere of barely controlled urgency permeating the facility. "What happened after I passed out?" she asked, her voice stronger now. "Agent Thorn and Agent Xyler neutralized the Crack's mercenaries," Director Lyron explained. "The energy pulse from the precursor device disabled their weapons and equipment, making it relatively straightforward. They've been detained for questioning about their knowledge of the installation." "And the beacon?" Alara asked, the image of that powerful beam firing into space still vivid in her mind. Director Lyron's expression grew more serious. "That is our primary concern. The device sent a directed transmission into deep space, far beyond our explored territories. We don't know what message was sent or to whom, or what might respond." Thorn entered the room, looking slightly less intimidating in standard BEVIN uniform rather than tactical gear. "Glad to see you're awake. You had us worried." "The information in my head," Alara said, struggling to articulate the fragments swirling through her mind. It's important. I can see star maps, coordinates, technology schematics. But it's all jumbled like 1,000 books with their pages mixed together. Our neural specialists believe the information will organize itself as your brain adapts to the download, Director Lyron assured her. The precursors would have designed their information transfer systems to be compatible with recipient neurology, even across species. How reassuring, Ilera muttered. Ancient aliens anticipated dumping their cosmic encyclopedia into my head. Xyler entered next, its multiple eyes immediately scanning her vital signs displays. Your neural patterns have stabilized by 47% since initial monitoring. Remarkable adaptation rate for a human. Thanks, I think, Ilera replied. She attempted to sit up, and though her head pounded with the movement, she managed it. So what now? What does BVN plan to do with me and the information I'm carrying? Director Lyron and Thorne exchanged looks that Ilera didn't need alien technology to interpret. Ideally, we would extract the information for analysis, Director Lyron admitted. But our preliminary scans indicate that attempting forced extraction could cause irreversible neural damage. The precursor data has integrated with your existing neural pathways. In other words, Thorne added bluntly, the information is stuck in your head, and we need it. Which means we need you. Ilera let this sink in. Yesterday, she had been an underpaid museum archivist worried about budget cuts. Today, she was apparently carrying ancient alien knowledge that a secret government agency desperately wanted. I want terms, she said finally, surprising herself with her own boldness. Terms, Thorne repeated, eyebrows raised. If I'm going to help you understand whatever's in my head, I want guarantees. First, my friend Mira keeps her job at the museum with a raise. Second, I want resources, proper equipment, access to research materials, whatever I need to make sense of this information. Third, I have final say in how this information gets used. Director Lyron made that chiming laugh sound again. MS. Vance, you are in no position to. I'm in exactly that position, Ilera interrupted, finding strength in desperation. You said yourself you can't extract this information without harming me. That means I'm not just a witness or civilian consultant anymore. I'm a repository of precursor knowledge that you can't access without my cooperation. The room fell silent as her words hung in the air. Xyler's eyes rotated thoughtfully, while Thorne's expression shifted from surprise to something like reluctant respect. The human demonstrates logical negotiation tactics, Xyler observed finally. Her requests are within acceptable parameters for a Level 5 specialist contractor. Director Lyron sighed, a strangely musical sound. Very well, Miss Vance. Your friend's position will be secured with appropriate compensation. You'll be granted BAVN, specialist resources, and reasonable autonomy in your research. As for the third condition, we can agree to collaborative decision-making regarding the application of precursor information, with your input given significant weight. Ilera nodded, knowing this was likely the best deal she could hope for. Then I'll help you make sense of whatever the precursors stuffed into my brain. Excellent, Director Lyron said, rising. Once you're medically cleared, we'll set up a specialized workstation for you. Agent Thorne and Agent Xyler will continue to be your primary contacts. After the director left, Thorne approached Ilera's bedside. Smart move, he said quietly. Not many civilians would have thought to negotiate in your position. I catalog and preserve historical artifacts for a living, Ilera replied. I know the value of unique information. And right now, apparently, that's me. The neural download has already affected your cognitive processing, Xyler noted, scanning her with one of its devices. Your pattern recognition abilities appear enhanced. This will prove useful in deciphering the precursor data. Great, Ilera muttered. Ancient aliens rewired my brain. Do I at least get paid overtime for this? Thorne actually laughed, a short, rusty sound like he didn't use it often. Welcome to BAVN, Specialist Vance. The paperwork's going to be a nightmare. 3 days later, Alara sat in her new workspace, surrounded by technology that made the museum's equipment look like children's toys. Screens displayed the fragments of information she'd been able to coherently recall and describe. Star charts, engineering schematics, mathematical formulas that BEVN. Mathematicians were still struggling to comprehend. Working with Alara had required adjustments for both Thorne and Xyler. Thorne's military precision bristled against Alara's methodical, sometimes meandering academic approach. Xyler's logical, literal communication style often clashed with Alara's use of metaphor and intuitive leaps. Yet somehow, they were forming a functioning team. These star configurations, Alara said, pointing to a holographic display she'd helped recreate from her memories. They're not just maps. They're more like addresses. Addresses to what? Thorne asked, studying the patterns. I'm not sure yet, but they're organized hierarchically with what seemed to be priority markers attached to certain locations. Alara closed her eyes, reaching for the fragments of knowledge floating in her mind. I think they might be locations of other precursor installations or outposts. The beacon signal was directed toward this region, Xyler noted, highlighting a distant star cluster in the projection. A previously unexplored sector beyond the Marian Divide. Alara nodded, a headache building as she forced more fragmented information to the surface. There's something important there. Something the precursors left. Protected. The beacon was... I think it was reporting successful activation of the Nexus Station node, confirming that their system still functions after millions of years. Reporting to whom? Thorne asked the question they'd all been avoiding. If the precursors disappeared millions of years ago, who or what is receiving these signals? Before Alara could answer, an urgent alert sounded throughout the facility. A junior agent burst into the room, eyes wide. Director Lyron requests your immediate presence in the monitoring center, they announced breathlessly. Our deep space arrays have detected something approaching from the direction the beacon signal was sent. Something big. The monitoring center was a hive of activity as analysts tracked the incoming anomaly. Director Lyron stood in the center, their silvery features set in an expression of concern. It appeared at the edge of our detection range 20 minutes ago, they explained as Alara, Thorne, and Xyler joined them, moving at speeds that should be theoretically impossible for objects of its mass. The main screen showed a massive object traveling through space, its design unlike any known ship or station. It resembled a crystalline structure with geometric patterns that immediately reminded Alara of the sphere and the Nexus Station installation. Precursor, she whispered, the knowledge surfacing from her altered consciousness. It's a precursor vessel. Automated, I think. Responding to the beacon. Threat assessment? Thorne asked, immediately practical. Unknown, Director Lyron admitted. It's not broadcasting or responding to any communication attempts. Its trajectory will bring it to Earth's solar system in approximately 72 hours. Alara stared at the approaching vessel, feeling a strange resonance with the patterns visible on its surface. They matched fragments of the information in her mind, triggering new connections and understandings. It's not a threat, she said with sudden certainty. It's a key, or part of a key. The sphere, the Nexus Station installation, and now this. They're all components of something larger. A system that's been dormant for millions of years, waiting to be reactivated. For what purpose? Director Lyron asked. Alara closed her eyes, concentrating on the chaotic information swirling through her consciousness, trying to form coherent patterns from the fragments. When she opened them again, her expression was somber. I think the precursors were running from something, or preparing for something. The information feels like contingency plans, safeguards. She gestured to the image of the approaching vessel. This isn't an invasion. It's a delivery, part of a system designed to protect or preserve. The sphere sought you out for a reason, Xyler observed. The statistical probability of random activation after millions of years is virtually zero. These events are connected and purposeful. Thorne's expression remained skeptical but determined. Whatever's coming, we need to be prepared. If this thing reaches Earth, we need to meet it, Ilara interrupted. Not fight it. The precursors built this system for a reason, and now it's activating after millions of years. Don't you think we should find out why? She looked down at the now inert sphere sitting on the console beside her. It had served its purpose, triggering a chain of events set in motion eons ago by beings long vanished from the galaxy. And somehow, through cosmic coincidence or design beyond their understanding, she had become part of that ancient plan. Director Lyron studied her for a long moment before nodding. Prepare a diplomatic vessel. We'll intercept the precursor object before it reaches Earth's solar system. Specialist Vance will accompany the mission, along with Agents Thorne and Xyler. As the monitoring center erupted into activity around them, Ilara picked up the sphere, its surface cool and lifeless against her fingers. The geometric patterns that had once glowed with such power now seemed like nothing more than decorative etchings. From paperweight to galactic key, she murmured to herself. Not bad for a museum artifact. Thorne approached, his usual stern expression softened slightly by what might have been concern. You ready for this? Meeting an ancient alien automated ship isn't exactly covered in museum studies. No, Ilara admitted with a wry smile. But then, neither was having my brain rewired by precursor technology. I'm getting used to improvising. Xyler joined them, its multiple eyes scanning Ilara with scientific curiosity. The information within your neural pathways continues to organize itself. Your understanding of precursor intentions and systems is growing exponentially. Lucky me, Ilara said, though there was less sarcasm in her voice than there would have been days ago. The terror and disbelief were gradually giving way to a reluctant fascination with the cosmic mystery unfolding around her. As they prepared to face whatever was approaching from the depths of space, Ilara couldn't help but reflect on how completely her life had changed. One moment, she had been cataloging forgotten textiles in a dusty museum basement. The next, she was carrying the knowledge of an ancient civilization in her mind, preparing to meet a vessel that had traveled across time and space. The quiet, predictable life she had known was gone forever. In its place was uncertainty, danger, and discovery on a scale she had never imagined possible. And despite everything, the headaches, the fear, the overwhelming responsibility, she couldn't deny the exhilaration of being part of something so much larger than herself. They thought it was just a relic, she whispered to the sphere in her hands. We had no idea what we were about to activate. Above them on the main screen, the precursor vessel continued its impossible journey toward Earth, carrying whatever message or purpose the vanished ancients had deemed important enough to preserve across millions of years. Whatever it was, Ilara knew with bone-deep certainty that it would change everything, not just for her, but for all of humanity and beyond. The quiet archivist who had once cataloged the past was now hurtling toward an unimaginable future, carrying the legacy of the precursors within her transformed mind. And as terrifying as that prospect was, there was a part of her, the part that had always longed for field work and discovery, that couldn't wait to see what happened next.